Today's a little different, and if you want to jump ahead a minute or so to get to the actual video, I'll understand, but I'd prefer you hear me out. If you're watching this in the US, Tuesday, November 8th is election day. I assume most of you are voting because I know you're all smart people. And I'm not going to tell you who or what to vote for because I don't know what's on the ballot in your state. And I don't want to insult your intelligence, so just a couple things. One, last week I mentioned that urbanism is political, and I probably understated that. There are hundreds of other things to consider when you're casting your ballot, but this is an urbanist YouTube channel, so I'm just gonna say, if you're choosing between two candidates, here are some things to think about. There's one party in this country that is committed to gerrymandering power away from urban areas. All the things we think are great about cities, diversity, openness to new ideas, freedom for people to just be themselves, are things they hate about cities. You know what else you find in cities? Intellectuals, and yeah, fascists hate them too. So if you're really struggling to decide between two candidates, choose the one that isn't actively trying to ruin cities. Two, I realize what I'm saying here is kind of framed negatively. Like, I'm telling you to vote against someone instead of for someone, but I'm just trying to be realistic. Sometimes there are candidates you just have to keep out of office because if they get in, they're just gonna do incalculable damage. But I realize some of you hate that framing, and I get it. So the other thing I would say is lots of jurisdictions have something like ranked choice voting or star voting on the ballot this year. Ranked choice and star mean you can go ahead and vote for the niche candidate who aligns with your political views most closely, but not feel like you're throwing away your vote. And I understand the arguments against RCV and star, which are essentially that they can be black boxy and difficult to explain, but I just don't find that argument super persuasive. We already have a significant chunk of the populace that thinks elections are a sham and voting machines are rigged. So why bother trying to appease them? Let's just take care of the 60 to 80% of this country that hasn't already gone off the deep end. Okay, end rant, let's do a fun topic today. This is CityNerd, weekly content on cities and transportation. Viewer suggested topics, always welcome. And I don't know if this is anything anyone asked for, but given that my video on the most undervalued US cities is by far my most watched video at this point, you had to know this was coming. So this is gonna be the most overvalued cities in America. And what I didn't want to do was just turn the undervalued cities list upside down and give you the 10 worst. I mean, that would have been easy to do, but I would have gotten bored, and rule one of this channel is keep the host entertained. So I want to get into the list relatively quickly because I already wasted a bunch of your time up at the top of the video. But there are a few things here that require comment and clarification. First, the whole idea of overrated or overvalued. All I mean by this is these are cities or really metro areas that are just way overpriced for what you're getting. And you might say, well, the price is what people are willing to pay, and it's an efficient market, so that's what they're worth. And therefore, you, city nerd, are wrong to call them overvalued. Well, for those of you who are thinking that just the fact that a thing is expensive or there's a lot of demand for it means it's necessarily good, I'd just point out that the highest grossing movie of all time is Avatar. And one of the top grossing live music acts of all time, and I use the term music loosely here, is Fish, spelled with a P and two H's. The point here is different people value the same things differently based on the specific characteristics they care about. So for cities, as an urbanist, I'm looking for the things that fit my values. Ability to live car-free, cultural amenities, weather, beauty, both in the natural setting and in urban form, and economic opportunity. So I'm not going to go through a huge methodology section here, but I will touch on some of these very quickly just so you understand my thinking. First, I did do this differently from my undervalued cities list, just to keep myself entertained. And one big change is instead of using the Zillow Home Value Index as my indicator for how each city is rated, I wanted to go with rent. So this time I'm using the Zillow Observed Rent Index, or ZORI, as a stand-in for how a city is valued. I'll leave a link to Zillow's methodology for this, which is super interesting, down in the description. And by the way, when I say city, I actually did this by metropolitan area for all the usual reasons. Okay, so that's one side of the equation, and the other side is just all the things that I think make a city worth the price. So a big one is how easily you can live without a car, because that literally frees up budget for rent. It's called location efficiency, Google it. And for this, I just used the indices I came up with for my recent car-centric cities video. Let's talk about weather. To me, this is clearly a huge factor in how cities are priced. And what the sunshine is worth to you is a pretty personal question. Like, I'd just point out that if you go to the Pacific coast of Mexico in the winter months, all the flights are from like Canada or Chicago or the Pacific Northwest. People who live in California aren't generally spending a bunch of money on tropical vacations. Just something to consider. At the same time though, if you live in a place where the weather's pleasant all the time, don't you just start taking it for granted? Like, it becomes your new normal and then you're just paying a premium for something you don't even appreciate anymore. Just Google hedonic adaptation, that's all. Bottom line, I did include a factor for weather, but I didn't give it a huge amount of weight. I'm not gonna go into the other criteria. It's similar to what I've done in other videos. I'll just mention crime. I did a whole video explaining why citywide or metro area wide is a ridiculous level of granularity for looking at crime, and I definitely did not consider it here. Okay, that's all the preamble I'm gonna do, so let's get into it. Number 10 is San Jose, California. I only included metro areas over 500,000 for this list. And San Jose does have the highest rent index of any city I looked at, higher than New York or San Francisco. Look, I don't even dislike San Jose. The downtown is cute, it's easy to fly into, but it's more expensive than the Bay Area proper and it's less beautiful. I guess it comes down to if that's where you have to go to get a job and those jobs pay like high six figures, then housing is going to be expensive. I just wonder though, if you didn't have to live in San Jose or Silicon Valley, why would you? There's much better value just about everywhere else in California. Number 9 is Lakeland, Florida. Like, I don't even know what to show you on Google Earth for this. It's a city, I guess. It's like halfway between Tampa and Orlando. You're gonna find a lot of cities on this list are adjacent to better cities that might be slightly more expensive, but like Tampa and Orlando give you a lot more city for your money, and you stand a better chance of going car-free. Number 8 is Boise, Idaho. Look, I like Boise, but this is just still way overpriced. There are small pockets of livability, but mostly it's this grid of stroads with half-mile square tiles of disconnected streets and multi-car garage houses. Yeah, I still just don't get it. Number 7 is Port St. Lucie, Florida. If I zoom in on where the name of the city is, that should usually be downtown, but instead, it's a strode interchange on the Florida Turnpike, which kind of tells you all you need to know. Number 6 is Knoxville, Tennessee. I feel slightly bad because at least this is a university town, so you're gonna have some cultural options. But come on, $1,850 a month for Knoxville? That's more than Philadelphia. I cannot figure out what's driving these kinds of prices. Number 5 is Allentown, Pennsylvania. Look, if you're gonna live in a small to mid-sized northeast city that isn't on the Acela corridor, like every other option is better than this one. Allentown is over $1,800 a month and Lancaster is in the 1200s. Somebody make it make sense. Number 4 is the Inland Empire. You're over $2,600 a month. You're like 60 miles from LA. You're nowhere near the ocean. And the urban fabric looks like this. I just feel bad for the 4.5 million people who are paying to live here. Okay, quick pause while you ponder which cities could possibly be in the bottom 3. Drop a like on the video unless I made fun of your city. Subscribe and hit the bell for guaranteed weekly entertainment. Please, please, please vote. Connect on various websites and join the Patreon if the spirit moves you. Sub count check. The channel now has enough subscribers to fill the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, home of the annual Cotton Bowl. It amazes me that this much land in the heart of America's 4th largest metro area is devoted to a state fairgrounds. Well, I guess it's Dallas, so maybe I'm not that amazed. There are no honorable mentions for something like this. I did look only at metro areas over 500K for this list, but Zillow does calculate rent indices for smaller metros. So I'm gonna give you the 3 most expensive, and you can see if you can figure out what the common denominator is. Heber, Utah, is it A better, at $4,300 a month. Jackson, Wyoming at $6,500 a month. And Glenwood, Colorado at over $9,000. Like, I understand these are enclaves for the well-to-do who have far too much time on their hands, but how do they house all the people who staff the fancy shops and restaurants? I don't ski, so if you know these places, drop me an insightful comment. I had one kind of surprising city that almost made this list, and it's Boston. Look, there's a lot I like about Boston, but someone explained to me why it's so much more expensive than Philly. Similar size, similar climate, similar cultural amenities. Philly's location on the Northeast Corridor is actually better, but Boston's like $1,000 more a month. Bostonians, make your case down in the comments. Let's get back to it. Number 3 is Stockton, California. Over $2,500 a month for Stockton. It's like Bakersfield, except you're paying a premium to live like 80 miles from the Bay Area, so you can have the pleasure of being a super commuter and piling up absurd amounts of mileage on your car. Actually, there is a train if you can swing it, but man, $2,500 for Stockton? Have people been to Stockton? Just wow. The California housing market is truly incredible. Number 2 is Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is its own metro area distinct from New York. So yeah, you can pay $2,800 a month to live like 50 plus miles outside of New York City and take the New Haven line, I guess. Get real though, people out here drive. It's got basically the same auto ownership numbers as Las Vegas. Just Connecticut has bigger casinos. And number 1 is Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, Ventura, California. Again, distinct metro area over 50 miles outside of LA. So you're paying a small fortune in rent for, I don't know, views, I guess, but let's be real. The apartments that actually have views are gonna be a lot more than $3,100, so I don't even know what you're paying for here. At least Bridgeport and Stockton have trains, so I guess you're getting nice weather and the privilege of driving traffic-choked freeways for hours on end if you actually ever want to go anywhere interesting. File under no thanks. And that's all I've got. Thanks for joining, and thanks as always to the patrons for helping ensure the continued viability of this channel. It really does mean a lot, and possible live stream coming just to celebrate hitting 100,000 subscribers, if that actually happens. Hit the notification bell if you're interested. I will be back with a new episode next week, and I'll see you then.